Good morning, everyone. Reverend Tom here. Thanks for joining us for our contemplative service this morning. I hope to see you at coffee hour at 11:30. Let me know if you need the link and or if you do not get my emails that contain the links. Other than that, our groups are, of course, going on. Dream group, Observing Spirit group, Heaven and Hell group. So Dream Group will be this coming Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. And once again, let me know if you'd like to be included in that particular reminder email group, which of course, once again, will include the Zoom link. I'll also send out a survey within the next few days in terms of what people prefer as far as our meeting format goes. So kind of thinking it might be nice to return to socially distanced in-person services starting in February, meaning next Sunday. And of course, we would still record the messages and post those. But in either case, keep an eye out for an email about that. And of course, I'll let you all know before next Sunday what format our meeting will be in. I'll leave it at that for now. Once again, I hope to see you at 11:30. And let's enter into this sacred space this morning together, consciously. Of course, we're already in it. Let's center ourselves, maybe put our feet firmly on the ground, if that's one of our ways of centering, or whatever works for you. See if we can make an attempt to the best of our ability to let ourselves calm our bodies, calm our minds, let's take some deep breaths in and out. Maybe close our eyes. See if we can release and relax every muscle in our body. See if we can release and relax all the thoughts swimming around in our mind. Take a quick pause from all of it. And as we become more and more fully present in this moment, let's enter into that inner sanctuary that's neither in our body nor in our mind. And let's approach the open word at its center. And let's see if we can be fully present with today's readings for reflection. Our first reading today comes from the Psalms. This is from Psalm 46, verses 4 through 11. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." From the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg, True Christianity, 779 and 790. The second coming of the Lord is effected by means of a man to whom the Lord has manifested himself in person, and whom he has filled with his Spirit, that he may teach the doctrines of the new church from the Lord by means of the Word. Since the Lord cannot manifest himself in person, and nevertheless has foretold that he was to come and establish a new church, which is the New Jerusalem, it follows that he will do this by means of a person who is able not only to receive these doctrines in his understanding, but also to publish them by the press. I affirm in truth that the Lord manifested himself before me, his servant, and sent me to this office, that he afterward opened the eyes of my spirit and thus introduced me to the spiritual world and granted me to see the heavens and the hells and to talk with angels and spirits, and this now continuously for several years. In order that the Lord might be continuously present with me, he has unfolded to me the spiritual sense of his word, wherein is divine truth in its very light. And it is in this light that he is continually present. For his presence in the word is by means of the spiritual sense, and in no other way. Through the light of this sense, he passes into the obscurity of the literal sense, which is like what takes place when the light of the sun in daytime is passing through an interposing cloud. And from the Urantia book. The church is only the larval stage of the thwarted spiritual kingdom, which will carry it through its material age and over into a more spiritual dispensation, where the Master's teachings may enjoy a fuller opportunity for development. Thus does the so-called Christian Church become the cocoon in which the kingdom of Jesus' concepts now slumbers. The kingdom of the divine brotherhood is still alive and will eventually and certainly come forth from its long submergence, just as surely as the butterfly eventually emerges, as the beautiful unfolding of its less attractive creature of metamorphic development. And from Paramahansa Yogananda, the second coming of Christ. All souls who become united with Christ consciousness by intuitive self-realization are rightly called sons of God. A small cup cannot hold an ocean within itself. Likewise, the cup of human consciousness, limited by the physical and mental instrumentalities of material perceptions, cannot grasp the universal Christ consciousness, no matter how desirous one might be of doing so. What is necessary is for the cosmic wisdom and divine perception of Jesus to speak again through each one's own experience and understanding of the infinite Christ consciousness that was incarnate in Jesus. That will be his true second coming. So as some of you may know, yesterday was the old Swede's birthday, Emanuel Swedenborg. Of course, Swedenborg was born back in 1688, quite a long time ago. And so I think he would be flattered that there's still people celebrating his birthday. And I remember we've done this at Hillside, and I have this nice memory of, having like a Swedish flag colored cupcakes. And celebrating the old Swede. And that whole tradition, for lack of a better term, has just kind of inspired some thoughts in me, and I've been thinking about this week, and once again, this, like all of my messages, this is simply an impulse for conversation. So I'm really hoping that we'll continue this conversation during coffee hour. So Swedenborg, of course, is remembered mostly by his followers, by Swedenborgians, who sometimes like to kind of overplay his fame in the world. He did make huge contributions to Western science and is rightfully remembered for that. But he's really not very well known. He just really isn't. And it's mostly Swedenborgians who know and care. And that's cool. But I always remember this kind of slight sense of discomfort that I've noticed in myself and others when we place such a big emphasis on Swedenborg, the person. Says the dude who literally has an icon of Swedenborg on the altar. But more on that later. The question becomes, of course, a lot more broad than celebrating Swedenborg's birthday. It goes as far as to really have a big impact on what is Swedenborgianism? What is the Swedenborgian Church of North America? What is the new church that Swedenborg talks about? Are those the same? And isn't it weird, or maybe even a bit culty, for us to call ourselves Swedenborgians? After all, Swedenborg was very clear that he was carrying out a mission that he felt was divinely inspired, and he did not credit himself with it. In fact, he first published his stuff anonymously. He tried really hard to not make this into another sect, another teaching, where people follow a leader as a person. He called himself a servant. And he did have somewhat of a narcissistic side that comes through in his works, especially his earlier works, but I think he was very intentional about fighting that part of himself. But anyways, there's been this really long debate among Swedenborgians from the very beginning, again, on what is the new church, what is its relation to the Swedenborgian movement, which of course emerged after Swedenborg's death. Swedenborg never started an organization. He never started a church. He never established any kind of sect. This was really not at all his idea or his mission. This is something that happened later when people were reading Swedenborg and they started getting into trouble for it, and figured they need to, start their own organizations, church organizations. So the concept of a Swedenborgian church, I believe, would be quite foreign to Swedenborg himself. And there's this continued debate. It used to be a lot more prominent, but it's still a debate that I have witnessed and have had partaken in on the term Swedenborgian and Swedenborgian church. And we've had this conversation here at Hillside versus new church. Isn't it weird to call yourself Swedenborgian church? Doesn't that give the impression that we believe Swedenborg is the second coming? I happen to firmly believe that from a doctrinal standpoint, Swedenborgian church is, in fact, a more appropriate term for our denomination as a specific religious tradition. Because Swedenborg, as I read him, is very clear that the new church is not an organization. The new church is a collective and an individual spiritual state that we can inhabit, that is open to us, that he felt he witnessed, but that didn't happen to him or through him. Swedenborg didn't experience the second coming of Christ for us, but he stood as a witness for a process that we are all invited to partake in. But then why do I believe so strongly that Swedenborgian church is appropriate? Isn't there maybe a third option? Maybe. Isn't there a paradox in wanting to de-emphasize Swedenborg and calling a church Swedenborgian? I personally think it's the opposite. And the late, great George Dole articulated this sentiment that I personally share in his usual very brilliant and witty way when he said, an organization calling itself the new church is like a recreational swimming team calling itself the Olympic champions. The term Swedenborgian, to me, actually indicates a sense of humility, an engagement with the human Emanuel Swedenborg, acknowledging that he is not the ultimate, that he is not the source. The new church is unfolding all around us. And if Swedenborg was right, the new church, the second coming of Christ, is a universal reality that fundamentally changed and is changing the spiritual dynamics of human life and our relationship with each other and the divine. And that's all of humanity. All of humanity. And I feel that we can see how this is happening all around us. While there's still so much work to do, as we all know, if we think about values that we associate with a new age, with a new church, which of course Swedenborg uses those terms, uses the term church to mean age or aeon, dispensation. If we believe in such values, really humanist values that Swedenborg espoused, rationality, human rights, equality, we've done a lot of progress. There's been a heck of a lot of progress. And I side with Steven Pinker in saying that while things are hard, the progress is undeniable. And that these ideas, while they haven't fully been realized, are worth fighting for and have had incredible success. Think about how uncommon, we can nitpick examples of exceptions to the rule, but if we're honest with ourselves, notions like female and male equality, true equality, participatory, actual participatory democracy, which the Greeks did not have, slaves could not vote, gender equality, once again. If you think about the reality, if you look at the Christian world compared to Swedenborg's day, the fact that these days in Western mainline Christianity, it is the norm to ordain females to the ministry. It is the norm among mainline Christianity in the United States to consecrate same-sex marriages. The notion of ecumenism, of working together rather than against each other, has exploded. At Swedenborg's time, churches within and outside of Christianity were so divided. And, so there has been unprecedented things that have happened. The notion that your own cultural and ethnic group is not superior to others. If you look closely at history, that's not a very common notion that we are all equal. It's just not. These are fairly new concepts in the sense of being espoused and realized on such a huge scale. So the new church is not an organization. By the way, I know that's a big can of worms, and some people would say we're worse off than before. I'm happy to have that conversation. But again, the new church is not an organization, and it is also not a Christian organization. In Heaven and Hell 308, Swedenborg writes, people are not part of the church merely by being born where the Word exists and where the Lord is known. People are part of the church if they are being regenerated by the Lord by means of truth from the words. That is, they are living lives of love. New Jerusalem, section 246. The church, like heaven, is within us. as individuals. So the church in general is made up of people who have the church within themselves. Once again, the church, like heaven, is within us as individuals. So the church in general is made up of people who have the church within themselves. There is no church within us unless the truths we have been taught are grounded in good actions from a loving heart, and therefore grounded in the way we live. We as Swedenborgians, I think, can do our part in striving to carry the new church within ourselves and to realize and to manifest it around us through a life of radical love. But just like Swedenborg was a vessel, not a source, we as Swedenborgians can be vessels for the new church. And so can people who have never heard of the old Swede and have no need to, and people of all faith backgrounds. And in some areas, I actually feel like we as Swedenborgians need to catch up with the new church. And I'll end my reflection with Heaven and Hell 308. The Lord's church is everywhere and exists with everyone who acknowledges something divine and lives lovingly. On that note, once again, I hope to see you at coffee hour and continue that conversation, as well as just having some fellowship and touching base. Like I said last week, I'm just really touched by not only the quantity of folks that have shown up for coffee hour and watched the video, but also just the quality of our conversations. It's just been really, really great. So I hope to see you at 11:30. And let's end this portion of our time together with centering ourselves again, taking some deep breaths, being fully present, making ourselves a home in that inner church within our hearts and our souls. And we lift all that we carry with us, all the joys and all the heartaches that we have, that the world has. We lift them up to that first source and center of love and truth, and open ourselves up for divine inflow. That God's will and actions and words and blessings would manifest through us. So may all beings be blessed, and may we be led to be blessings to all. We ask in God's many, many holy names, and in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. You might be noticing the drums, which is really great. It's our Sikh friend who makes his awesome music. His name's Rishi. So thank you, Rishi, for playing your Indian drums for us. Really beautiful. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is actually quite beautiful. So yeah, see you at 11:30, I hope. Thank you so much for joining and listening to me babble. And looking forward to some convo at coffee hour. Thanks so much.